Hey guys, did you know that it's 1 year anniversary of George Floyd being clean and sober? That's one way to put it. But no, it's one fateful day in 2020 that ruined the rest of the year, happened earlier today, and we must celebrate. And Justin Trudeau is taking it upon himself to call out racism. He vows to fight racism in Canada on the anniversary of George Floyd's death. And thank God he's going to do something about it, because this man is a man of purity and he is one of outstanding character. And I couldn't think of anybody who would be better suited for this. Could you? I don't buy it for a second, because it's something that I've been inadvertently talking about with a bunch of people across all the platforms that these fine videos find themselves on. And we've been talking about how Trudeau is, corrupt, evil, misguided, however you want to put it. I remember Canada, post-2015, post-Trudeau. I remember it as a place of civil discourse, a place where we might have a disagreement, and it was that old stereotype of a Canadian fight would just end with the victor being the person who said sorry the most. It was a lot like that. Maybe not to that extent, but we all basically agreed upon the same Anglo-Saxon traditions of freedom and the right to pursue a life and a well-being for yourself and your family. We may disagree about the methods and the path to get there, but the end goal was all basically the same. Whether you voted for Jack Layton's NDP, Stephen Harper's Conservative Party, or, Paul Martin's Liberal Party, we all had the same goal in mind. We wanted a better Canada. What does Justin Trudeau want? To see different people pitted up against one another. There wasn't this big racial divide, class divide, gender divide, whatever kind of divide he can use to pit people up against one another. That didn't exist. One of the first things I can personally recall him doing, it might not be his first action, but, just give me a little bit of leeway on this one. He immediately started to go out on the old Barack Obama 2008 apology tour. He would go to every native reservation he could possibly think of, and he would start immediately apologizing for all of the atrocities in the past. That was long glossed over, okay? Up here, Grand Prairie, we have a whole hell of a lot of reservations around here, okay? We all pretty much get along, okay? There was no fomented rage up here. There was no need to go on a big apology tour. You didn't hear about any sort of racial animosity in Northern Ontario, in Manitoba, Saskatchewan. I don't know, there's probably more stray dogs than people that live in Saskatchewan that you can see run away for 3 days. No, he used that because he's seen what happened with the accelerated racial tensions once Barack Obama became president, and he thought, I'm going to give me a piece of that for myself. And he did that, and long story short, we're in the shitty situation that we're currently in right now, where we just have a feckless opposition, and everybody hates one another for whatever reason, because my leader with the nice hair is in charge. It's all relatively stupid, but we can pull out of it. It's just going to take a few decades, and I ain't got that kind of time. But anyways, yeah, Justin Trudeau, that guy right there, is going to be fighting racism. He's hopped on Twitter to tell us so. Oof. As America becomes a glorified Twitter biography with the Biden administration authorizing Black Lives Matter flags to be flown at U.S. embassies, yeah, in commemoration of St. Floyd's ascension to that great fentanyl factory in the sky. Other countries want to signal the moral upstanding too, and of course the first one to virtue signal in line has to be King Trudeau. The occasion the politicians are exploiting is the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd's death. It's being presented as the summer of race riots last year across the United States ought to be celebrated. Although seeing as though Nancy Pelosi literally thanked George Floyd for dying. You guys remember that video? Thank you, George Floyd. Thank you for dying for racial harmony. I don't think she used such flowery language. Granted, it was probably, a few fingers of scotch deep at that time. It was after 5, after all. Immediately following the all-guilty Chauvin verdict, this doesn't come as a surprise. At George Floyd Square in Minneapolis, some in attendance chose to celebrate Floyd with a salute of gunfire. We'll get to that in a minute. Earlier on last year, people treated George Floyd Square as a holy site where some were even baptized. Yeah, I've seen the videos, and you can find them as well, and they're as cringe as they sound. Over in Canada today, the former substitute drama teacher, Justin Trudeau, hey, I just make that joke, made a speech about the anti-black racism, which is so prevalent here in Canada. Is it really? I don't think so. We all pretty much get along, but you know what? Hey, if you dress up like that on a regular basis, or at least enough to get multiple photographs of you dressing up in such garb, then yes, okay. I'd assume you could probably find some anti-black racism. Canada's Prime Minister said the death of George Floyd, an American, was a reminder that there's injustice in Canada as well. Me too, guys, me too. What a fucking fruit. But let's actually get into that, because there was a shooting in the George Floyd zone, and 2 people are down. Yeah, at least one shot at George Floyd Square on the anniversary of his murder. On the street corner where George Floyd died wasn't safe from violence on the 1-year anniversary of his murder Tuesday. Yes, it's officially been called a murder because he was convicted as such, so whatever. Spilt milk and all. Dozens of bullets flew in George Floyd Square in Minneapolis just after 10 a.m. I didn't think that they'd be awake by then. During an apparent parking dispute, leaving one person injured. They only fight over the most consequential of matters. Only a few hours before the street was set to be turned into a family-friendly festival in memory of the slain black men. Yeah, they needed to clean out all the rubbish, so, gunfire was necessary. Of course, I guess that's a thought process when you're down there in that autonomous zone, which just produced so many great things. Floyd's videotaped police brutality death has led to widespread protests of racial injustice, law enforcement reforms, plans, and convictions of white former cop Derek Chauvin, who now faces up to 30 years behind bars for killing the 56-year-old dad. And that whole conviction might get a second look, shall we? It might end up getting audited, if we were to use one of the many terms of the recent past. But it also sparked a radical defund the police movement, and a flood of cops quit in the Minneapolis force. Yeah, and that defund the police movement, if you guys remember, a mere year ago, boy, it was hot. And boy, Minneapolis was one of the first places to just take charge and be ever so loud about their support for the movement. They vowed to cut their budget. Seattle did the exact same thing just after Chaz was established, because God, we're coming up on a year on that one, and then a couple weeks later you're going to have the anniversary of its demolition. But all of these heavily liberal areas, okay, heavily Democratic voting bases, were so incredibly behind defund the police. Hell, Portland was so dedicated to it. Ted Wheeler, got pepper sprayed, rubber bulleted, assaulted at a restaurant. Boy, that dude was really taking it seriously. And he's still definitely living up to his promise that he's going to be cleaning up Portland. Yeah, any day now, Ted. Any day now. God, yeah, even Lori Lightfoot, she was one of the people out there in Chicago. It's like, yeah, we're going to defund the police, but make sure they don't leave any of my residents unarmed. Jeez, because I'm important and I need the armed guards. But it's looking like, yeah, that whole defund the police thing, we got a sneak peek of this because I didn't order everything correctly. Yeah, defund the police, about as well thought through as the 1619 project. Whole bunch of propaganda, and you're not considering the aftermath. Refunding the police. Major cities backtrack on police budget cuts after crime surges. I don't know what's more shocking, okay? The fact that defunding the police didn't work, or that John Cena cucked out to the CCP. I don't know. This is just, I'm troubled. I'm shaken to my very foundations. I'm sure you guys can tell. Following calls last summer from groups such as Black Lives Matter to defund the police, a number of city officials are now walking back the statement to go through with cutting funding to law enforcement due to surges in crime levels. The Minneapolis City Council several months ago voted to approve $6.4 million more in funding. The police department, but over this last summer, they voted to cut it, but then they walked it back after all the fervor was done. It's almost like there's something wrong with legislating from a place of emotion. I don't know. I can't think of, like a concrete example or anything. And if you think too hard about concrete examples, you'll have a piece of that thrown at your skull. Hopefully you're wearing a helmet. Coming after a number of council members last year pledged to completely abolish the department. Oh, there's the example. Oh, okay. Should have just read a little bit more, right? Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, a Democrat. No. What? Another shock. My heart can barely take it. Announced in May that he's pushing to increase funding to the city's police department, coming at about a year after George Floyd's death. To date the anniversary, okay? Yay. I'm sure that there were many balloons that were sent there. Hopefully shaped in the form of a pill. A death in police custody. Sure. which sparked the Black Lives Matter protests conveniently just before a major presidential election. Riots and arson attacks across Minneapolis, Seattle, New York, Chicago, Portland, and the list goes on. The violence needs to stop. It's unacceptable. Ooh. Tough talk there, Jacob. Said earlier in May during a news conference, which came amid a massive spike in violence in the city. I wonder why. People deserve to feel safe in their own neighborhood. They should probably move out of Minneapolis because you ain't going to find any there. They deserve to be able to send their kids out on the sidewalk to play and to recreate without bullets flying by. That's unacceptable. Do I need to remind you of what anyways? That's unacceptable. We should be holding these perpetrators accountable, but instead you let the George Floyd Autonomous Zone exist for over a year in your city. Congratulations, you're doing a great job. Frey blamed activists' calls to defund the police. No, don't hold me accountable. I just voted for this shit, okay? It was you guys. You guys made all that big stink and you made us vote for this, okay? Oh my god. Jacob is new name, and he wasn't previously in a former life known as Jessica, something like that. Because his ability to dodge responsibility is reminiscent. When you make big overarching statements that we're going to defund or abolish or dismantle the police department and get rid of all officers, there's an impact to that you guys didn't think about when you voted to slash the budgets. Oh, okay. Or if you're a Democrat congressperson, in a certain subsection of the House of Representatives, they have a catchy little title. Last year, during the protests in Minneapolis, Frey was admonished by Black Lives Matter supporters because he refused to abolish the city's police force in a scene some compared to a struggle session during the Chinese Communist Party-led Cultural Revolution of the 60s and 70s. The mayor, however, said he wanted a structural revamp to the city's police force. If they don't get into it, I recall this video as well. Maybe not the video specifically, but what they ended up doing. Okay, when they voted to slash the budget of the Minneapolis Police Department, they also voted to get rid of the Minneapolis Police Department and institute some kind of community-based policing, which wasn't using the term policing, but was going to have more social workers going out to places, which really would have helped. I don't know, just think of any one of those famous shootings that sparked a riot. How could a social worker have helped any of those, okay? Like, would a social worker have grabbed the knife out of the hand of Ma'Khia Bryant? Would have knocked Derek Chauvin off of St. Floyd? Would have stopped Jacob Blake from sexually assaulting his baby mama? Like, I don't know what help a social worker is going to do. Normally, they're little, 5.5 foot tall, 300 pounders. Like, they ain't going to move fast enough to make a fucking difference. But you know what? Hey, what do I know? I'm not a mayor of anywhere. I'm just a commentator, and I just see the aftermath coming from a mile away. Mayor Bill DeFalio, a Democrat, announced this month that his city is building a police precinct in Queens to deal with the spat in rising crime, coming months after he pledged to cut $1 billion from the NYPD's budget. I wonder why he'd have to build a new precinct if he's going to be cutting by $1 billion. Oh, wait, the city has cut far less from the police department than the pledged $1 billion. Say one thing, do another. I swear, that's got to be the tagline right underneath that little ass that is the Democrat logo. In late April, the mayor said stimulus funding for the federal government will allow the construction of a new NYPD precinct in southeastern Queens. No, see, I'm slashing the budget, right? But we got a different influx of money to build that precinct, so don't worry, we're still going to be slashing it, just don't check any of the numbers. This is something that, for decades, the community asked for. Yes, because overwhelmingly the community likes the same amount or more policing. The 116th precinct building was something that could not happen in the environment because of ... trade-offs. No, for you being a cuck. He said, it is one or the other, which is the choice in 2020. We leaned into the investments. He doesn't learn anything. In young people. Now, thankfully, we have the resources to address both these issues. And the examples continue to go on and on. LA's Garcetti cut funding last year, then reneged on the commitment last week. Abigail Spanberger, a representative from Virginia who won a close race, reportedly panned Democrats' messaging during the last election cycle. Yeah, after she ran on the platform, she's like, no, this is a bad idea because I polled my constituents and they're totally different than the radicals that are on Twitter, which I gain all of my talking points from. It's amazing what happens when elected representatives go out and actually talk to the people that are in their community instead of just relying on the messaging of the fucking warped sensibilities that are on social media. It's totally fucking different when you talk to real people. Okay, the 80-90% in the middle are so much different than the 5% on the far left and the 5% on the far right. Okay, you need not worry about those people. They'll continue to bitch about literally everything. It's all about ideology for those people. All you need to do is focus on the 90% in the middle and let those fuckwads just deal with their own fucking problems. Okay, I don't care about setting up a fucking white ethno state. I think that's a retarded idea. Nor do I think setting up different racialized areas for minoritized people, however you want to fucking determine that. I think that's a retarded idea. And guess what? You guys can bitch and moan about that in your own little echo chambers. I'll be here talking about the stuff that the real people care about. And funding the police is something that is beneficial to literally everybody. Now do a little bit better and make sure that the training gets a little bit more ratcheted up, and make sure that it's not just a one-time shot. Make sure that it's something that keeps happening on a quarterly, biannual basis, something like that. I'm willing to compromise on that. Let's just have better officers so we don't have fucked up situations, so we don't have a sympathetic ear to the retards that think that,
oh, we need to get rid of the police. That way we can just let murderers and rapists run about the city, and we can just police our own districts with social workers.
You're fucking stupid. Get off Twitter, go outside. And with that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.